Woohoo. Thank you everyone for tuning in to the Unbuttoned podcast. Today I have Kevin, aka Intern, joining us. Kevin, how you doing?
Doing well, doing well. Suffering from a Pat Super Bowl loss, but outside of that, things are good.
Damn, Pats made it back to the Super Bowl before the Bills did. Must be tough being a Bills fan. Well, thanks for coming, Kevin. I think people obviously know you on CT. You're one of the best like shit posters I've seen, but I'd say also great at growth. We've known each other for a while. I know you have it in your bio that you're ex CMS, and I don't think people know random fun facts about you. Like you're an insane lacrosse player. You want to give a little bit of your like origin background story and how you got started in crypto?
Yeah, for sure. So I initially got into crypto in 2017, like summer 2017, going into my sophomore year of college. I studied physics and then picked up econ and math later on, but like was kind of first and foremost physics. And there's not a lot of like good things to work on with a physics degree after, right? Like you can go do theoretical physics and stuff, but at the time, like there just wasn't much actual application to it. And I knew that I wasn't planning to go and study physics post college. But like I think that there was kind of a lot of overlap between like the intelligent design that I saw with Bitcoin and Ethereum and what I was interested in, why I was interested in physics. And so it kind of fell down the rabbit hole. Started investing in crypto back then and kind of realized pretty quickly that like not having a direct path to like any career opportunity based on what I was studying and like everything that was happening in crypto kind of lined up pretty well, so that I knew very early on, I was like, I want to work full time in crypto. And so, yeah, from there, there wasn't like Coinbase is huge now, for example, like you can just go to their page and apply for jobs. That wasn't really the way things worked back in 2017, 2018. So the best way to get into the industry was just to meet people that were working full time and chat with them. So I did that for about 2 years, just try to find every single person I could, talk to them, get my name out there. And one of the guys I talked to, Mike Zinneman, connected me with Dan over at CMS. And I was lucky enough to score an internship with them in 2020. And yeah, that's kind of how I initially got like full time into the industry. Yeah, I think that there's like, I joined the firm. I'm a literal intern. The firm is all like people age 30 to 35, like very smart, traditional financial backgrounds. Like have been working full time, or have been working professionals for 10 plus years. And I'm literally just like this kid. And Dan, who's like well ahead of his time in this, in 2020 was like, memes are so important, especially in crypto, like we should hire a full-time meme guy. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, these guys are all like 30 plus. I'm a Zoomer. I'm trying to find any way to add value to the firm at this point. And so just like tried my hand, started trying to make some memes. And the guys loved it, right? I think there was like a lot of positive encouragement. And so you kind of like carved out, I was working in full-time in a venture at that point, but like spun up a Twitter handle called CMS Intern to kind of like play on the CMS Holdings account and would really just post memes. And then kind of in the same vein as the intern side, like I would take notes on all of like every Up Only episode and like really anything that was like an hour or 2 hours that was relevant for crypto, but people didn't want to spend the time doing it. I would take notes, condense it, and then post that on Twitter. And so I think for a really long time on the Twitter side, it was mostly just creating like these meme videos that was kind of more attention, dopamine style posting, and then posting like informative notes. So if people want to know what was going on the industry or in the industry, they could hop on and follow. So those are the early days.
Dude, I remember the notes and the memes. I actually forgot that. I think memes have always been such a big thing about like CT, and then they only recently kind of become financialized. But back when it was just a lot less of us in this weird corner of the internet, you always had some pretty good memes. Even now, you have some good memes. What caused you to go from venture CMS? By the way, like great venture firm, super professional people. They have crushed it on like Liquid and stuff too. Dan and the boys have been around for a while. You guys were like really early Solana when it was not the trendy thing to do. What led you to go from having like a up and coming successful venture career to being like, I want to go lead growth at Monad now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say kind of the confluence of a few things. One, at this point, I had seen over 1,000 pitches for startups in the crypto space. And when I saw the Monad pitch, I was just like, this is an enormous idea. And I'm not sure if it's going to work. But if it does, it's like clearly the biggest thing that I've ever seen on the venture side. And so I angel invested in the firm. This is like early 2022, and then started basically following along with them. Um, and I think, over time, early on, I was like, 10% chance that this works. But if it does, it's so clearly important that like the idea is huge. So like at 10%, it's still a great bet. Um, Over time, it kind of became more like, I was doing more research on what they were building. The state database was a really hard problem to tackle, and they made some progress on that front. And so it kind of went from 10% to like 50%. And at that point, I was like, this is one of those things that's high risk, but going all in on this is like, I will be, if I don't do it and I'm this confident on it, and then it does work the way that I think it is going to work, I'll be like jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge, right? I would not be able to live with myself after seeing it and if I passed. And then the other thing I think is important is like going up new learning curves, I think is like really, really important, and something that like when you're starting off in your career, you should like look to do. And so instead of thinking like, what are the things that I will do in this job, or what's my day-to-day look like, thinking like, okay, if I do this 2 years from now, what skills will I have, or what kind of a person will I be? And so it was exciting for me to go from like just the investor side and kind of Twitter poster side to like now I'm going to be on an operator role in a very small startup, trying as hard as I can to grow it. And I think just having like both lenses, right? Having the investor side, being able to like, reason through valuations and what's interesting, what's not interesting in the market. And then also being able to like go in, get my hands dirty, understand how startups work from the ground up, and like just build out that skill set, I thought would be a really good combination. So I was excited for, what I would be able to do. And also just like at Monad's trajectory, I just wanted to definitely be a part of it.
What was the most non-obvious thing you learned about building a crypto ecosystem before mainnet? Because Monad, I think, was such a ambitious idea, and as someone that was able to invest early in it and also just kind of hear about it, I was like, oh, this is a very ambitious team. They're doing a lot of crazy stuff that may or may not work, but it seems like a bet that's worthwhile. What were some of the things that you kind of going into it, maybe coming from the investor side, wasn't as obvious, or maybe on either lens? What was these things that made it like growing this crypto ecosystem that most people may not know about?
Yeah. Maybe one of them, and it's not like a direct learning, but I'd always had this view when I would watch startups that would like be successful, or like I look at kind of celebrity icon founders like Elon Musk type people. To me, it always felt much more like watching a movie, right? It's like, this is like my real life, and what I do and what these guys do is completely like, they're not the same thing. And I think from like talking very early on with Keone around strategy and what we should do, and like seeing the outcomes of that, and like actually being able to mold reality into the thing that you want, kind of created this like, it kind of just gave me confidence that like everybody is basically trying to work as hard as they can to achieve success, but they don't have some secret playbook that you don't have, right? Like they have the same tools, they're like working on the same things. And like, if you just apply yourself and try really hard, like you can solve the things and actually be successful in a market. And so maybe that was more like perspective. Like I think literally thinking through just how other people have done things versus how we were planning to do things at Monad, and seeing that there's a lot of similarities, and like also seeing what other people have missed. Like not at that point in crypto, like again, I think people, it's hard for them to put themselves back in that 2022 era market. But like protocol marketing and growth was just awful. Like nobody was doing this well. And there were like, they did not care about attention. Like they were basically disregarding social media, or if they weren't, they were like doing an awful job at capturing attention on that side. And so I think like just from spending time on crypto Twitter, and then seeing like, okay, I can actually apply this to a lot of the things we'll do at Mana, and I think it'll work well. And then having that actually play out was a really good learning. So like, I don't know, taking the things that you're good at and applying it to a new field, like you're going to see a lot of solutions that other people won't necessarily see because they don't have your background.
Dude, it's actually a really interesting point where like, I think for me as someone that was building stuff and is now building stuff again, you kind of realize no one really knows what they're doing in a weird way. But you only ever see the fruits of success. So you never really see all the things that incrementally like lead you to go there. One thing that I thought was interesting, you were talking about like the growth stuff and how no one was really doing it. How do you balance like meme driven community growth while also attracting serious long term builders? I know we keep asking you a bunch of monad questions and you're not there anymore, but just want to get these out of the way and then we'll pivot to other stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, it's all I've been thinking about and working on for over 3 years, so like it's definitely top of mind. I think that um, maybe two things. One, usually when people think of marketing or like trying to grow their brand, they think of like coming up with the right Super Bowl commercial or like posting the right tweet. Um, and I understand why they think of it like that, but I think the growth of the protocol is actually much more like it's much more of an engineering and kind of like systems architecture problem than it is like a posting problem. And so, for example, like when I look at a company doing their marketing, I'm thinking like, okay, they're trying to capture attention. How are they converting that attention into the thing that they want to be happening? And if there's like no funnel, there's no way to capture it. It's kind of like you're catching a fish, but you don't have a cooler and a net, so you have to throw the fish back. And so they're creating some event, but they're not actually taking advantage of it. But one thing that's kind of key to kind of getting the like crypto Twitter retail side and also getting long-term ecosystem investors or investors, builders, any other like large kind of career-based player on your platform is that attention is kind of a universal currency and you can actually trade it for a lot of other things that you want. So for example, like when I was kind of handed the keys to an account that had 0 followers, the Discord didn't exist. It's kind of like, all right, start from scratch. The main thing we focused on early on was make sure everybody knows what Monad is. And then if you can get people to know the brand, to see it often, now it's like something that they know is a real thing they've seen before. Builders are going to find it attractive that you're able to generate attention. Right? Because like builders, honestly, a lot of them don't really care what chain they're on. They just want people to use their product. Right? There are some cases where like apps literally can't be built unless the chain is performant enough, and like those are amazing. But for like, I would say the majority of builders, it's basically, are there going to be users? Can I get more users in this ecosystem or that ecosystem? And being able to capture attention and market effectively, bring users in, get people excited about their products is super valuable. Like that's probably the number one most important thing for a lot of these teams. And so yeah, being able to do that on the protocol side kind of lends, I don't know, it gives them confidence that that will also happen when their app goes live. And so it makes it like an area of opportunity and something that there's a big pie now and they can go and capture and try to carve their slice out of.
That's really interesting, I think, in terms of just like solving the education problem. And I think something that's really unique about this crypto is sometimes we get too far into like the research driven stuff and like people don't really know why something's important. And looking back at all the things that I've done really well, like Ethereum, all right, decentralized computing, cool, that makes sense to me, that should be valuable. I think a group that did it really well early on, that a lot of token projects kind of their memes and their community mimic themselves off this now, is Chainlink, right? People are like, it's the Oracle
Link
problem,
Marines.
or yeah, the Link Marines. It's like, oh, the decentralized Oracle network. Most people don't really know what the hell that means, but it's like, oh, it sounds like it should be important. Solana, it's like most people that hold Solana have no idea what proof of time is, but they know, oh, it's fast, it's performant, right? And then I think with Monad, it was kind of similar, where like, oh, parallelization, super fast, without compromising like decentralization. It's just one thing that I've noticed as well. This cycle, I'd say, is like the most nihilistic out of any of them, where like no one really believes in anything. And I'd say we're both, for better or worse, like true believers of crypto. What do you think? What do you think projects need to do to kind of bring back hope, right, and get rid of cynicism and get people excited about what they're doing?
Well, that's
To
a
art
billion dollar
fucking,
question, right?
it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
It is.
It definitely depends on the team. I think in general, tackling something that should provide value like is key. So I think a lot of the cynicism and nihilism we've gotten is I've seen this product before, just in a slightly different color or shade. And so I kind of know how it works. It's not exciting. Like if you think about when we were getting into crypto, the things that were exciting to you was like, I've never heard this idea before, and this idea seems massive.
Mhm.
Right. I think after kind of the 2021 run up and like the way that we saw the market play out there, people like, okay, I kind of know there was this big bubble on Aave, and then now Aave kind of trades around where it does. So like a fork of Aave is not going to be that exciting to me because I kind of know what the ceiling of that looks like. And like kind of Aave is actually the leader. And so the ceiling is lower than what Aave currently sits at. And so there's kind of two things that are true at once. One, people expect a lot of things to be in an ecosystem when they go and use it, right? You need a place to swap, you need a place to do borrow and lend and trade perps. And so like these things need to be built and teams are going to come in and build them. But I think building something that people find interesting is the hard part. And if you start from there, like then you actually get to play in a game where people haven't already written you off. So I think like project selection is probably the main one.
It's a hard question.
Yeah.
I just threw this shit on you, dude.
No, I mean, like, look, like, if you have a really good idea, like, you can put bells and whistles on it and make it sound better or have a famous person bring you on their podcast to talk about it. But, like, at the end of the day, you're just a vessel for explaining the idea. Like, the idea is the thing that's important. Clearly, like, executing and actually building the thing that you're talking about is also important. But yeah, I think a lot of people put too much of an emphasis on like, how do I take this thing and make it sound better and shinier than it is? And not enough of an emphasis on like, at its core, is this thing actually interesting? And if so, we just need to get the story out there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's like storytelling itself has become more and more important, whether that's storytelling from like, hey, this is the team DNA, this is the stuff that we've done, to like, hey, this is maybe we haven't done anything before, but we're very ambitious. We're tackling this big problem. This is why you should care about this problem. If we solve it or even half solve it, it'll be a huge opportunity. I think that kind of like pedantic, logical flow of storytelling is missing a lot of the time in crypto. Maybe I think it's because people don't, this is going to sound mean, but I think the average person in crypto is like maybe not dumber than I'd say, but we're so dopamine like deprived in one shot where people are just kind of thinking of like, all right, how can I get rich off of this? Instead of thinking through like simulating like how does this change the market, or how does this, what are the second order effects of this, right? Like you see this a lot with stable coins and people aren't really thinking through that stuff.
Right. Yeah, I think maybe one way to put it, which could be a better explanation than I gave previously, is like, if somebody can see to the end and see that this is like a solved thing and there's no interest or curiosity or thing that they don't understand to go and tackle, it's not interesting. Right? Like if you go and launch an NFT project, everyone's like, well, I know how this ends.
Yeah.
And so why would this be any different? And so they write it off. And so I think like early on when you learn about Ethereum, it's not solved. You're like, this has applications across basically everything. Like I wonder which one is going to catch on. Like I don't have the answers to this, but I know it's very high potential. And so if the thing you're going after is has proven to not be high potential in the past, like many times over, then it's much harder to get people to actually go and believe that the thing that you're working on is actually high potential. But I think someone needs to learn something new and be curious about a mechanism that they don't yet understand in order to kind of generate that initial excitement and interest.
That makes sense. I think interest, excitement, all these things need to kind of come back. A lot of it's moving over to AI now, I guess. So how do you, like, I don't know what you're doing next. You don't need to tell us what you're doing next, but how are you kind of balancing between, I think for me, and this could be something I want to hear your take on this, like crypto was the most interesting part of the internet that I've ever been a part of. It like stimulated all the different parts of my brain from, sociology, economics, technology, and all of these things that we were trying to do, right? Like from DAOs to disrupting stuff to tokenization to DeFi, composability. It just constantly kept me stimulated over the last like 10 years, right? 9 years. A lot of things that I was excited about happening are starting to happen now. And then I'm looking out, like I use AI a lot in my personal life. I'm always surprised by the craziest shit that's happening in AI. Like whether that's I'm making memes for my fantasy football chat with just a prompt, all the way to, hey, I can underwrite like a real estate seller offer or whatever, blah, 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 right? Like there's so many things now. Now where you're at, like I don't know what you're up to, but how do you kind of reconcile the fact of, yes, like crypto is exciting, or maybe that's right, wrong thing. Crypto is, I'd say, not as exciting as like robotics, AI. How do you, for your brain, and I think you're a very intelligent person that has a lot of truth seeking stuff built in. How do you weigh crypto against these other exciting industries now?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that I've been thinking a lot about recently. I think that maybe one way to put it. When I first learned about crypto and was diving in and really getting deep into the industry and like understanding how a lot of these protocols worked and what was exciting and what wasn't exciting, kind of knowledge gap between people who were putting in the time and effort and energy to like get up to speed and learn as much as they could, and the average person, maybe even like passive observer of crypto, was so large,
Yeah.
right? Like I remember looking at CoinMarketCap for CMS in 2020, and it was like Elrond was above Solana market cap, and I'm like trying to figure out why. And I'm looking through, and they like had like kind of a good pitch. They're like, oh yeah, we're really fast. But then if you dive in, you're like, this is not even close, right? And so it's like if you went in, spent the time to actually like figure out what was good and what wasn't, there's a ton of financial opportunity, right? Like you could make a lot of money just by doing that. And I think that so there's a big delta between like the space is growing very fast, and if you are smart and are applying yourself, there's a lot of opportunity. And I think over the last 9 years, it's kind of become more mature, and like the things that crypto is useful for so far, at least in the market, are more consensus, and there's less of a knowledge gap. So like the industry is much larger, right? Like everybody understands that stablecoin payments are objectively better than the traditional banking rails. And it's like it's kind of a foregone conclusion over the next 2 years. Stablecoin issuance is just gonna like 10x, right? We just like accept that. Now it's just adoption. So like to me, there's it's a larger industry, but there's less like very fast growth and new things that are happening. And I think if you look at robotics and AI and some of these other industries that are growing extremely fast, that exact same knowledge gap exists, right? And I think where you see fast growth and you see kind of new technical applications pushing forward things that drive a ton of value, that's where all opportunity is going to be, or like that's the land of most opportunity. I think a very similar thing will happen to those markets that happen with crypto, where like people don't really know, so everything gets valued pretty highly, and then like over time a lot of them wash out and it turns out they weren't worth pursuing, but it's just too hard to understand if that's the case right now. But yeah, I think like dude, it's like every single week some ridiculous new AI application comes out and like changes how every single engineer works in the world. It's just like crazy, right? Like it's just moving so fast, and like actually, it's just a very exciting time. Like the world is huge, and there's more things happening quickly and creating value now than there ever has been in history.
Dude, it's insane. I think like what's the saying where it's like decades happen in a few years or whatever. It feels like it's been like that since our professional careers have started. So this is something I do a lot too. I always like my one thing that I think about is I think the best investors are people that can like simulate society and see how society would change. I think that's fundamentally like what makes a good investor. And I'll go on Reddit a lot. I've deleted Reddit off my phone because it was taking up too much of my time, and I would just get into arguments with people. And I'm like, this is not what I should be spending my time on. But I started going onto Reddit and really focusing on what are people that are maybe not as technological savvy, or I think if crypto, like if you're willing to use unregulated exchanges where like the code could take all your money, that to me is like, that's crazy that we were able to do that. Like obviously I'm down to use like Claude or whatever, right? Like the difference is so massive. So going onto these platforms and like these forums and reading what people are saying about AI is like crazy to me, where people take pride in the fact that they don't use AI to code program. And something I've noticed even in my own like personal use of stuff, or even for work, like my like output has gone up so much more. I'm ADHD brain, all this stuff. I actually like, for me at least, when I want to get my thoughts down, it's harder for me to write stuff down than it is to say it out loud. And now with things like Whisper, I can just I'll spend like an hour and a half just saying things, get it all transcribed, and then edit it myself, and then use an LLM to get it even better. When you kind of see this, like this is where I'm getting to the question. People are going to think about all the things that are going to change But have you identified any things you think are not going to change? In this next few years where things are going crazy, what do you think is not going to change at all?
I might reframe the question to what do I think changes last?
Mm,
Because like I think 10 years from now, you're gonna look at the world, it will be so different that
weird.
like it's gonna be crazy. Right. And like it'll feel fast when it's happening. Like usually you look back 20 years ago and you're like, oh, the world's so much different, but it didn't feel like it was changing that much. Like you're gonna feel the change because it's going to happen that quickly. I think the things that will change last are I don't think anything in tech is not going to change, to be clear. So I don't think there's like high quality career opportunities that are not going to change. I think that personal relationships and like person to person trust probably is one of the last things. So like I guess career wise that would be something along the lines of like sales. Um, but I don't know, like I really struggle to think of like any job that's out there, any technology that we currently use that like even 5 years from now won't just be completely obsolete.
Yeah, I've thought all about this about this as well. I think I'm aligned with you where sales isn't going to change. I think, or is the last thing to change. It's always going to be kind of people. Another thing that I've thought about is that like sports. Honestly, I think sports fandom is going to become even maybe more important. But all at the same time, like just this weekend, we went out to this thing in San Francisco where they were doing like robot fighting, and
Yeah.
it was sick. It was like super novel. I can see. I wouldn't go there another time after experiencing it like once. I think that was good, but I can see another category of sports coming up where it's like robots doing crazy shit that human beings couldn't do. I guess in this vein of these kind of more broader questions, I love asking people this question: what is something you've recently changed your mind on?
Great question. Yeah, and maybe to put a cap on the other like sports fandom, like that emotional draw and connection, like I think that is always going to be innate. So like emotion, trust, person to person connection. Something I recently changed my mind on. I think my worldview has changed a lot over the last 6 months to the point where like I don't even know how most people define this, but like in essence, like we're more or less in how most people describe the singularity. Like we're past the event horizon
Mhm.
and things will just speed up as we get closer to that. And when you take that as kind of a worldview, uh, it changes how you think about a lot of things. So maybe a more of a direct expression of that is I think that robotics is going to become like the largest, like essentially robotics and the things that power robotics will be the largest industry in the world in, by 2030. And it currently is tiny compared to that. Um, but like it really is just, I've thought about this a lot. I don't really see a way that it doesn't happen.
Mhm.
Like for that to not happen, you basically would need capitalism to not work and also AI improvement to just completely stall out. And I just don't like that's just not something that will happen. And so I think that like maybe the main thing that will change in your day to day will be like these jobs that are based around labor. Like the person making your Chipotle bowl is like not a person. Right, like it's like a generalized humanoid robot. And like I think that's gonna do crazy things to the world as like literally global human labor gets automated. So maybe that's the most like radical one. I mean, dude, I don't know if you've listened to Elon Musk talk about this recently, but he's like they shut down production of Model S and Model
Yeah.
X cars just to build the Optimus robot. Like these things, I think that is one thing that I'm like, I don't think people see the wave that is coming, and it's going to radically change the world more than like any other hardware kind of invention in the past. So like to hit on the robot fighting, like it's kind of like that's like ChatGPT 2,
Mhm.
right? It's like the first one, you're like, oh, it's kind of cute. It made like a haiku, but it actually got the syllables wrong. To like how you think of Claudebot now, for example.
Yeah, I think to your end on like the singularity stuff, it's insane, dude. I don't think people realize what's coming. And I saw this today, like the one of the big Anthropic guys left, and he's like, I'm gonna go study poetry. Like everything's fucking crazy. And that's always what's happening when these like big AI guys that are like at these frontier labs that are at the center of the gravity of all this stuff, they're always like, I've seen things that I can't tell you. Like I'm out, you know? And what blows my mind about all this is how many people just don't know what's coming, like at
Yeah.
all. It blows my mind. Like the average person that I speak to, even though there was some stuff, someone CC2 or something, this like video model came out yesterday, and a bunch of people were like, "Wait, this is AI." People are so like, there's this barbell almost of people think AI is a super slop bullshit that you can easily tell is AI, and they don't know that like, dude, deep fakes are already here. They're insane. This is like one shot to all of KYC. I've established parameters with my parents because it's so easy to like take someone's voice and imagery. We're like, hey, if someone calls you and pretends them to be me, like we need to have a safe word, right? Like grandparents, this happens to all the time. I think for me, I'm half and half on something that kind of changed my mind on to cap that off was I think that I was directionally correct on kind of the global casino aspect, but I don't think crypto was actually the right instrument. I think it was equities. And I've thought a lot about this. I'm like, what are people going to do when the markets, like, what happens when we don't need labor anymore? And I think people still taking risk with capital is something that will happen. Um, Whether it's like through the ways that we do it now, or maybe it's some weird parameter of like prediction markets. But another thing that's super interesting to me, and this is something I've always been tracking, was how much money we spent on the Apollo project was like 300 billion or so. And I always use that as, hey, once AI capex is like above this is when we get into like the end game. And with all these AI companies announcing $600 billion in capex in 1 year is just insane, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. Like the difference between people who do see it coming and those who don't. And it's crazy to even have to draw a line like that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, just people that think the world works the way it works. Like, obviously, every single person in all of history has had an understanding of the world, and that is what these people are operating off of. Like, super normal, rational. Like, any other context, that's completely fine. But, like, I was watching somebody in the Olympics last night, and she was like, yeah, or no, on Jeopardy, actually. Sorry. On Jeopardy, and she's like, yeah, I'm entering law school, so I'm going to use my winnings to offset my my legal school costs. And I was just sitting there thinking, like, this person has no idea that they're going to spend all this time getting a degree and then like have nothing, like it will just be obsolete. And so I'm actually more optimistic, I think, than the average person with these things. Like generally people hear that much change and it's just like really freaks them out. I think that it will actually be like really awesome. But it's going to change a ton. But yeah, I think that like, and I mean, we could hit on any specific piece of it. Like my cousin is super, super deep on the AI side, like lives with all Anthropic people, would have worked there, but essentially like kind of did very well before, and Anthropic is an enormous grind and he's just like, doesn't want to, but like, probably a top 100-ish, maybe 1,000-ish AI brain out there. It's all he's been doing since he was like 12 years old, is studying this side. He's super smart. And like, I ask his opinion every 6 months. I'm like, all right, so are we cooked? Are we chilling? Like, how are you thinking about this? And yeah, to hear the way that they describe it, like the inevitability of this change on like even a short time horizon is just like jarring. And it's hard to deal with. Like I asked him yesterday, I'm like, so is it a bad idea to have kids? Like, how's that going to change? Because I know you've thought about this more. And like, we just chatted about that. But like, I think that literally just getting to the point where you can reason up and understand why the world will look very differently, like it definitely puts you in a better position because you're ready for that change to happen and like you are preparing for it. But yeah, I don't know what happens to the world as the change actually starts to hit on like the day to day. It will be crazy. Like my parents, dude, like what are they gonna do? Like I hang out with them, but like they're not gonna see this coming, so it'll be strange for sure.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this as well. Like, and what gives me solace, I guess, is a lot of the AI researchers and stuff that are leaving are just kind of focusing on things that enrich them, like their soul. Like, I can see a world in which honestly, like the best life is you've made enough money to where you own your home, right? Like you're able to me that's like what does escaping the underclass mean, right? Like you own your home, you have enough capital in the markets that while these companies like Google and stuff keep growing and growing, you're in a position to where, hey, I can have a family, I can raise my kids, maybe you grow your own food. The other thing in this too, that there's always this or doomer mindset, right? Of, oh, it's going to get rid of jobs, all this stuff. The other aspect of this is imagine a world in which we have fully autonomous robots that we don't need to have humans doing crazy, dangerous jobs anymore, right? We have supply chains that are ran by autonomous drones where you can live anywhere you want in the world and get anything that you want, right? And I think it's going to be one of the hardest challenges of our life is what do you do with humanity when productivity is massive, but that's not actually benefiting people? And
Yeah.
I don't know the answer. I don't know where that's going to go. But one thing that I love to know is, do you have any idea what you're going to do like after Monad now?
Um, there's a couple things I'm really excited about. And understanding that this is a podcast you're planning to share, I won't dive into them right now. But I do think there's like I said, the world is going to change a ton. And it's like, look, if there's a tsunami coming, like, dude, at least try to ride it, right? Get on your surfboard and make the most. Um, and so yeah, I'm thinking about that side. I kind of the way that I've thought about it is like I have done my entire professional career in crypto. Kind of like the vast majority of my financial exposure is in crypto. Um, like I could keep working in here. Like most of my network and expertise is in the industry, and so there's like awesome opportunities to potentially pursue there. But the other side is kind of hitting back on the learning curve point that I touched on earlier in the pod, where it's like, going from CMS to Monad, you got to learn this brand new skill, got to be an operator at a startup. And like that learning, I think, was actually the most valuable thing that came out of the experience. And so focusing on something new that I think is going to be huge and getting to play a role in that, I think it will be an awesome learning opportunity. So like I'm weighting that pretty highly and like what I'm trying to think through and what I think is attractive. And then maybe just to touch on your last point where you're like, what do you do and productivity doesn't matter? The way that like the best mental framing I've had for this is like if you're playing a video game and it's like, okay, you just put in all the cheat codes and you basically play on like sandbox mode. So like there's career mode, hard mode, where you're like going through the story and you got to do all of this stuff to get money, to buy whatever, or like you upgrade your character. Or it's like, okay, hit XYZ up, down, and then now you have infinite money and you can do whatever you want, which is like cool. It's just different though. Like it clearly will be very different, but there's a lot of really awesome things that'll come out of it as well. So
Damn, that's a banger one-liner to end the podcast on, my brother. Appreciate you coming on. I think you can. I'm gonna press stop now. There you go. It's like the most awkward ending.